Let's begin somewhere quiet, somewhere familiar. Picture the roads of Skyrim. Dirt paths winding through farmland. The scent of earth and growing things. These are the places where you first learn to gather, to notice the small gifts the world offers. Farms and roadsides hold more than crops. They hold the first lessons in survival. There's a memory worth holding, from the very beginning of your journey. A rebel named Ralof, sitting beside you in that cart on the way to Helgen, speaks fondly of a girl named Violet. He remembers her mead, made with juniper berries. It's a small detail, a warm memory in a cold moment. And if you ever return to Helgen after the dragon's fire has swept through, you can find those bottles in the wreckage of the inn. Mead with juniper berry, right there in the ash and ruin. Ralof's memory was real. Even in destruction, some things remain. Now, let's talk about wheat. Simple, golden wheat. It grows on nearly every farm across Skyrim, swaying gently in the breeze. For a traveler with little coin and less experience, wheat becomes a lifeline. Its very first effect: restore health. Pick a handful of wheat, gather some blue mountain flowers, and suddenly you have healing. No training needed. No special knowledge. Just the quiet alchemy of the land itself, offering you a way to mend. Speaking of those blue mountain flowers, they're special. Mountain flowers come in many colors: blue, red, purple, yellow. But the blue ones stand apart. They're the only common flower that carries both fortify health and fortify conjuration in their petals. For a mage who summons allies from the void, these blue blossoms are invaluable. More useful than their red cousins, more potent than the purple. The blue ones are a gift to those who call upon otherworldly aid. The red mountain flowers, though, they have their own purpose. They're the mage's flower in a different way. Restore magicka. Fortify magicka. Red patches blooming outside Whiterun become the first stop for any aspiring wizard. You learn quickly to recognize that crimson color, to know what it means. Energy, power, the fuel for spells. And then there's purple. The purple mountain flower completes the trio. Where blue supports health and red supports magicka, purple tends to stamina. Restore stamina, right there in the first effect. The world color codes itself for you, in a way. Blue for body, red for magic, purple for endurance. A simple system, written in petals. Let's pause here, just for a moment. We've walked through memories of mead and juniper. We've gathered wheat and learned its healing. We've discovered the mountain flowers. Blue for conjurers, red for mages, purple for the weary. These are the first harvests. The gentle beginning. There's another plant that finds its way into many aspects of life in Skyrim. Lavender. You'll find it growing thick around Whiterun, clusters of soft purple stems. It appears in alchemy recipes. Yes, but also in cooking. Hawker and ash yam stew, for instance. Some say it's cultivated near the city to mask the smells. The tundra, the animals, the life of a busy hold. Lavender serves both the alchemist and the cook, bridging two worlds. In the pine forests, if you venture toward Forkreath or the marshes of Jolmarch, you might come across thistle branches. Hardy, prickly things. They reflect their nature in their alchemical gift. Fortify heavy armor. It's fitting, isn't it? A tough, thorny plant lending its resilience to the armor you wear. The forest's toughness becomes yours. Out on the tundra, there's cotton. Tundra cotton. It's the textile of Whiterun Hold, the wool and flax of the region. Economically, it matters. People trade it, weave it, depend on it. Alchemically, its primary gift is resist magic. but it also plays a role in fortified barter potions, linking the plant to commerce, to trade, to the flow of goods and coin. The cotton connects survival and economy in one soft, white bloom. Now, there's a bit of humor here. Everyone who's spent time in Skyrim knows, don't kill the chickens. It's treated as a serious offense, strangely serious for such a small creature. But the egg. The chicken's egg is no joke in alchemy. It grants resist magic. The same protection you'd get from rare and dangerous nirnroot, you can find in a simple egg stolen from a riverwood nest. Magic resistance, tucked inside a shell. There are other bird eggs, too. Pine thrush, hawk, rock warbler. But the rock warbler egg is special for those focused on survival. It's the only egg that restores health. You'll find them in rocky nests, high up in dangerous places, especially in the Reach. Climbing those cliffs, risking the fall. It rewards you with an egg that heals. A small treasure for the brave. So let's gather what we've learned softly, before we continue. We started with Ralof's memory and juniper mead in the ruins. We found wheat and blue flowers, the basics of healing. We walked among the mountain flowers, blue, red, purple, each with its purpose. We discovered lavender around Whiterun, thistle in the forests, cotton on the tundra. We learned that chicken eggs grant magic resistance, and rock warbler eggs restore health. These are the first gifts of the land. The farms, the roadsides, the easy harvests. The rhythm of Skyrim's world, written in wheat and flowers and eggs. And now, we'll continue walking. There's more to discover, just ahead. Now we step inside, away from the fields and the open road, into the warmth of hearths and homes. Here, hanging from rafters and tucked on pantry shelves, you'll find a different kind of harvest. These aren't wild discoveries. These are the staples of everyday life, the bundles and braids that turn a house into a home. Small things, preserved and stored, quietly useful. Let's start with something that sounds stranger than it is. Elf's ear. The name conjures something dark, something severed. But it's not. It's simply a dried bundle of a common flowering plant. You won't find it growing wild very often. Instead, you'll see it hanging near hearths, in bunches, swaying gently in the warmth. It's a harvested crop, dried for preservation, likely used in cooking. Nordic households favor it. The name misleads, but the plant itself is ordinary, domestic, familiar. There's another herb that hangs from ceilings, and this one is harder to come by. Frost Miriam. In the wild, it's exceptionally rare. You almost never stumble upon it growing naturally. Instead, you find it dried, dangling from the rafters of Nordic homes and caves. It seems to be a domestic crop that has become scarce in its wild form, a plant that depends on human hands now, rather than the land. And then there's garlic. Braids of it, hanging in abundance. You'd think, given all the vampire stories, that garlic would harm them. That's the old law, isn't it? But in Skyrim, alchemically speaking, garlic doesn't damage vampires at all. Its effects are resist poison, fortify stamina, regenerate magicka, regenerate health. Practical, helpful things. And yet, those braids of garlic hang in vampire lairs. The superstition persists, even when the reality doesn't support it. Some beliefs linger longer than truth. Let's pause and gather our thoughts. We've stepped indoors. We've found elf's ear and frost Miriam, dried herbs hanging from rafters. We've seen garlic braids, their folklore stronger than their alchemical fact. The home becomes a place of preservation, of quiet preparation. There's one ingredient so common, so essential, that it touches nearly everything. Salt. Simple salt piles. In cooking, they're mandatory for almost every recipe. In alchemy, they're remarkably flexible, able to bind with many other ingredients. And they carry something rare. Weakness to magic. One of the few ingredients that creates this effect, making salt essential for crafting poisons that amplify the damage of spells. So versatile. So humble. So necessary. Moon sugar, now. That one carries weight. It's infamous as the base ingredient for skooma, the illegal drug that plagues elsewhere and beyond. But it's also a legitimate spice. You can use it to make elsewhere fondue, a dish prized by mages. Why? Because it provides an enormous, long-lasting boost to magica regeneration. More effective than most potions. Moon sugar walks both sides of the line. Illicit and culinary, dangerous and delicious. If you have the Hearthfire expansion, you might come across honeycomb. It's unusual because it serves multiple purposes. You can eat it directly for a small boost to stamina. You can cook with it, making honey nut treats. Or you can use it in alchemy, where it provides resist poison and fortify light armor. Honeycomb exists in two categories at once: food and ingredient, sweet and functional. Here's something curious about preparation. Charred skeever hide. You might think you'd get it by killing skeevers, but you don't. Slain skeevers only give you skeever tails. The charred hide. You find that on roasting spits over campfires. Already prepared. Already cooked. The charring process itself seems essential to making the hide useful for alchemy. It's not the creature, but the cooking, that unlocks its value. Mud crab chitin is another prepared ingredient, but it holds a secret. Its second effect is cure disease. Most players turn to potions or shrines when they're ill, but if you're desperate, if you have no hawk feathers or ready cures, you can mix mud crab chitin with charred skeever hide and craft a rudimentary disease cure yourself. It's not elegant, but it works. The shells of mud crabs, properly combined, can cleanse sickness. Hawk feathers, though. They're remarkable. Their primary effect is cure disease, which means you don't even need to brew them into anything. You can eat a hawk feather directly, right there in the wild, and it functions exactly like a cure disease potion. For hunters far from towns, far from alchemists, this is a lifeline. Rock joint, ataxia, any disease caught in the wilderness. A single feather solves it. Simple. Immediate. Pure. If you travel to Solstheim with the Dragonborn expansion, you'll encounter Felsad terns. They drop feathers too, and those feathers also carry cure disease. But there's a difference. For Felsad tern feathers, cure disease isn't the first effect. You can't just eat them and feel the healing. You have to brew them into a potion first. They're similar to hawk feathers, but not quite the same. The placement of the effect matters. Let's gather this together, softly. We've explored the hearth and the pantry. Elf's ear and frost Miriam hanging from rafters. Garlic braids defying their own legend. Salt piles binding everything together. Moon sugar straddling legality and cuisine. Honeycomb serving two purposes. Charred skeever hide requiring fire before it's useful. Mud crab chitin offering disease cures when combined properly. Hawk feathers curing disease instantly. Felsad tern feathers needing more care. These are the household staples. The things that make daily life possible, that turn survival into something quieter, more domestic. They're not grand or dramatic. They're simply there, hanging and waiting, ready when you need them. And ahead. There's more to discover. The world keeps offering, gently, steadily. Now we turn toward the water. The pace slows here, becomes more patient. Rivers wind through valleys. Coasts stretch along cold seas. And beneath the surface, hidden until you go looking, there are things waiting to be gathered. Diving, drifting, collecting. The water keeps its secrets until you're willing to get wet. Let's begin in the freezing waters of the Sea of Ghosts. Down beneath the waves, clustered on shipwrecks and under bridges, you'll find Nordic barnacles. They cling to wood and stone in the cold, and they carry something valuable. The water-breathing effect. There's a kind of poetry in that. You harvest barnacles to create potions that let you breathe underwater, which allows you to harvest more barnacles without drowning. The ocean offers you the tools to explore itself more deeply. Slaughterfish eggs require a different kind of bravery. They're found in slimy clusters along riverbeds and lake floors. You have to dive for them, and often the parents are nearby. Slaughterfish, aggressive and quick. You're reaching into their nests, taking their eggs, and they don't appreciate it. It's one of the few ingredients that demands you go underwater to collect it. The river doesn't give it freely. There's a particular kind of egg that's even trickier to obtain. Salmon roe. It's incredibly valuable for those learning alchemy, perhaps the most valuable ingredient added by the Hearthfire expansion. But you can't just catch swimming salmon and expect to find it. You have to catch salmon that are actively jumping up waterfalls, or kill them mid-air with a shout or spell while they leap. It's a specific, almost acrobatic requirement. The salmon must be airborne. The timing must be right. Let's pause here for a moment. We've dipped into cold seas for barnacles that grant breath. We've dived to riverbeds for slaughterfish eggs, dodging angry parents. We've learned to catch salmon in mid-leap for their roe. The water asks for patience, for timing, for willingness to submerge yourself. Not all fish are as obvious as they seem. There's a small, unassuming fish called the river betty. You wouldn't think much of it, but it's far deadlier than it appears. While deathbell is famous for poison, the river betty possesses a hidden strength. It has a magnitude multiplier for damage health that makes poisons brewed with it 2.5 times stronger than those made with nightshade or farmer ear. This little fish, swimming quietly in rivers, is a potent tool for those who craft death. The hist carp has a story in its name. It's named after the hist, the sentient, sacred trees that the Argonians of Black Marsh worship. You'd expect a fish with that name to come from swamps, from the warm, humid south. But the hist carp has adapted to Skyrim's freezing rivers and lakes instead. It thrives in the north, far from its namesake's homeland, a fish carrying a distant legacy. Then there's the small pearl. In the base game, it's exceptionally rare, finite, even. It doesn't respawn, and you can only find it in very few locations. A collector's prize. But the Dragonborn expansion changed that slightly. On the shores of Solstheim, you can occasionally harvest small pearls from pearl oysters. Still rare, but renewable now. The ocean of Solstheim offers what Skyrim's waters withheld. Sometimes the land plays tricks on your expectations. There's an ingredient called grass pard. Sounds simple enough, right? You'd look for something called a grass pard. But the plant it comes from is actually named spiky grass. Brown, thorny husks growing near the coastlines of Jolmarch and the Pale. The name doesn't match the plant. It's a small confusion, but one that can leave you searching for the wrong thing. Now we come to two fish that share a certain reputation. The Abesian longfin and the Cyrodiilic spoddytail. Both are infamous among those who've explored the deeper mechanics of alchemy. They possess the Fortify Restoration effect, and when combined with Salt Pile, they become key components of what's known as the Restoration Loop, a notorious exploit. a way to break the game's mathematics, to create gear with power that spirals beyond intention. The Abesian longfin from southern waters, the cyrodiilic spoditail from the neighboring province of Cyrodiil, both invasive in their own way, both chemically dangerous for entirely different reasons than poison. Let's gather what we've learned, gently. We've explored shipwrecks for barnacles, riverbeds for slaughterfish eggs, waterfalls for salmon roe. We've discovered the hidden lethality of River Betty, the adapted histcarp carrying its Argonian name. We've found small pearls, rare and precious. We've encountered the naming confusion of grasspards, and we've acknowledged the Abesian longfin and cyrodiilic spoditail and their strange power to unravel the game's balance. There's one more creature worth mentioning, the orange dartwing, a dragonfly hovering over water sources, similar to its blue cousin. But the orange dartwing is chemically unique. It possesses the fortify pickpocket effect. For members of the Thieves' Guild, this rare insect becomes highly prized. Liquid skill, brewed before a heist. The dragonfly grants nimble fingers, if you know how to prepare it. The water has given us much. Barnacles and eggs, roe and fish, pearls and dragonflies, each requiring patience, observation, a willingness to look beneath the surface. The shorelines and rivers don't shout their gifts. They wait for you to wade in, to dive down, to notice what drifts and what clings. And we'll continue onward. There's always more to discover, just ahead. Now the story turns softer, more secretive. We're moving into the realm of stealth and escape, of quiet advantages and subtle tools. Ingredients that help you vanish, slip by unnoticed, or simply gather more than you otherwise could. Small edges that make the difference between being seen and disappearing entirely. Let's begin with something both dark and fascinating. The forsworn briar hearts. These are powerful enemies, warriors who have undergone a ritual. Their human hearts have been removed and replaced with a botanical briar heart. The plant sustains them, keeps them alive. And because of this, there's a kill switch built into their very existence. If you can successfully sneak up on a briar heart and pickpocket that plant from their inventory, they die instantly. The heart that keeps them alive can be stolen, and with it, their life ends. The botanical becomes lethal in its absence. Vampire dust carries its own kind of magic. When you slay a vampire, you can harvest their dust. And the first effect listed is invisibility. If you're desperate, cornered, caught in a dangerous moment, you can eat the dust of your fallen enemy and instantly vanish. It's fitting, isn't it? Vampires are known for their ability to disappear into mist or transform into bats. Their dust lets you mimic that supernatural vanishing, chemically borrowing their power to escape into nothing. The lunar moth offers invisibility too, but in a gentler way. Lunar moth wings are a primary ingredient for brewing invisibility potions. These moths only appear at night, and their wings are translucent, almost ghostly. They symbolize the ability to fade into darkness, to become unseen. The creature's nature reflects its alchemical gift perfectly. Translucent wings, nocturnal habits, and the power to help you disappear. Deep in the darkest caves, in the pitch blackness of former hives, you'll find Shorus eggs. They glow faintly in the shadows, which is often the only way you'll spot them. And appropriately, they possess the invisibility effect as well. Alchemists use them to brew potions that let you disappear into the very shadows that the Shorus and their former keepers inhabit. The darkness of the caves becomes a tool for vanishing. Let's pause and gather. We've explored the Briarheart's deadly secret, the instant invisibility of vampire dust, the translucent lunar moth and its night-flying gift, the Shorus eggs glowing in deep caves. Each offers a way to disappear, to evade, to escape notice. Stealth becomes chemistry. For those who work with locks rather than combat, there are other useful ingredients. Spider eggs, for instance. They're niche, but valuable. They provide the fortify lock-picking effect, one of very few ingredients in the game that does so. Alongside Namra's rot, spider eggs become a prized commodity for members of the Thieves' Guild. Brew a potion before attempting a master-level lock, and your hands grow steadier, more precise. Pine thrush eggs offer the same advantage. You find them in nests throughout the temperate forests. Those speckled eggs, when consumed or brewed, grant fortify lock-picking as well. There's a strange correlation there, isn't there? Eggs. Steadying the hands of thieves. Making nimble fingers even more capable. The forest provides tools for subterfuge, hidden in bird nests. For those who gather ingredients, there's a particular skill worth working toward. At alchemy level 70, you can unlock a perk called Green Thumb. It allows you to harvest 2 ingredients from a single plant instead of 1. Most flora responds to this. You reach for a mountain flower and walk away with 2. But there are exceptions. Nirnroot, crimson nirnroot, and anything animal-derived like fish or butterflies. Those don't double. The perk has limits, but within those limits, it doubles your harvest. Efficiency becomes second nature. Wisp wrappings are unusual. Technically, they're the tattered remains of a wisp mother's clothing or form. Yet they function as a consumable alchemy ingredient. They're notably light and valuable, making them one of the most weight-efficient items you can loot and sell. Carrying wisp wrappings doesn't burden you, and alchemists or merchants will pay well for them. Ethereal remnants turned into practical gold. Let's gather again, softly. Spider eggs and pine thrush eggs for steadier hands at locks. The Green Thumb perk for doubling most harvests. Wisp wrappings, light and valuable. Remnants of something ghostly turned into coin. Here's something unexpected. Netch jelly, introduced with the Dragonborn expansion, lists paralysis as its first effect. And because the first effect of any ingredient triggers instantly when you eat it, players have discovered a strange use. If you're falling, plummeting toward certain death, you can eat Netch jelly mid-air. The paralysis stiffens your body, and the game's physics interprets this in a way that negates fall damage when you hit the ground. A parachute made of jelly and paralysis. An accidental lifesaver. And finally, something small and specific. In Forkreather's Hall of the Dead, on a shelf, you can find Barrett's ashes. It's a quest item for an NPC named Thagir, but the game code treats it identically to standard bone meal. This means you can mix it with other ingredients to discover bone meal's alchemical effects. A personal relic, someone's ashes, functioning as a teaching tool for alchemy. It's quiet and a bit sad, but chemically useful. We've walked through stealth and escape now. Briarhearts and their stolen hearts, invisibility from vampire dust and lunar moth wings and chorus eggs, lock-picking steadied by spider eggs and pine thrush eggs, the Green Thumb perk doubling your harvest, wisp wrappings lighten your pack, Netch jelly catching your fall, and Barrett's ashes quietly teaching you about bone meal. These are subtle advantages, small edges that compound. Ways to vanish, to unlock, to gather more, to survive falls you shouldn't. The world offers these gifts to those who pay attention. And we continue, gently, steadily forward. Now the landscape shifts. Warmer, harsher. We're moving into volcanic soil, ash, and heat. The ashlands of Solstheim, the geothermal springs of East March. Plants here feel shaped by fire and aftermath, by eruptions and the slow recovery that follows. This is not the gentle green of farms or the cool darkness of caves. This is something born from heat and violence, tempered over time. Let's begin with jasbay grapes. According to local law, these were once so rare, so precious, that cultivating them without the emperor's permission was considered treason, a luxury reserved for imperial authority. But by the Fourth Era, something has changed. The volcanic tundra of East March, with its hot springs and geothermal activity, has allowed jasbay grapes to grow wild and unchecked. What was once forbidden is now accessible to any traveler willing to brave the heat. The landscape reclaimed the luxury, made it common. Dragon's tongue is a vibrant flower that grants resist fire. The name fits perfectly. It's named after fire-breathing creatures, and chemically, it mirrors their nature. While it grows abundantly in the volcanic hot springs of East March, it's also cultivated as an ornamental plant in solitude. The flower links wild fire to imperial culture, beauty to survival. A single plant serving two very different purposes. Scathecraw tells a darker story. It's native to Vardenfell, but following the Red Mountain eruption, it spread to Solstheim, and it choked out much of the local flora in the southern ashlands. An invasive species, thriving in disaster's wake. Alchemically, it's notable for having all three negative effects related to health, magicka, and stamina ravagement. A pure poison ingredient. It takes from the land, and it takes from you. Nirnroot has adapted to the ashlands as well. It's a thick, woody shrub growing in the volcanic soil left by Red Mountain. Its primary effect is weakness to shock. Perhaps this reflects its dry, brittle nature, making it a poor insulator against electrical magic. The ash has made it fragile in specific ways, vulnerable to lightning despite surviving fire. Let's pause here, among the heat and ash. Jasbay grapes, once imperial luxury, now growing wild. Dragon's tongue resisting fire while decorating solitude. Scathecraw invading and poisoning. Nirnroot, brittle against shock but surviving in ash. The volcanic landscape reshapes what grows here. Burnt spriggon wood is exactly what it sounds like. It comes from burnt spriggans, creatures scorched by Red Mountain's ash. Normal spriggon ingredients focus on restoration and altering, but this charred wood is different. It provides weakness to fire, reflecting the creature's own demise. The spriggon, once tied to nature's growth, has been transformed by flame into something that makes fire even more deadly. Spawn ash is unique. Collected from the remains of ash spawn, it's the only ingredient in the game that possesses ravaged stamina in the first slot. This means if you eat it raw, immediately, your ability to sprint or power attack is devastated. The ash of these creatures is hostile even after they're defeated. Consuming it punishes you instantly. There's a technical oddity with creep cluster plants. The ones found in Solstheim's ashlands have a different item ID than those found in Skyrim. They're called ash creep clusters. Because of this, they don't stack in your inventory. The game treats them as separate items. But chemically, they're the same. You can combine them in an alchemy lab, and they'll work together perfectly. The land changes the label, but not the essence. Emperor parasol moss grows high up on the giant emperor parasol mushrooms that dominate the Telvanni landscape of Solstheim. To reach it, you often need the levitation magic available at Tel Mithrin or careful platforming. It's not easy to harvest. The moss demands effort, height, magical assistance. The landscape makes you work for it. Let's gather what we've found. Burnt spriggon wood carrying the weakness of fire. Spawn ash ravaging stamina instantly. Ash creep clusters separated by ID but united by effect. Emperor parasol moss growing high, requiring levitation or skill to reach. Ash hopper jelly comes from large, cricket-like insects in the Solstheim ashlands. It provides fortify light armor, one of only a few ingredients that does so, alongside beehive husk, hawk feathers, and felsad tern feathers. It links to agility and speed, fitting for an insect that hops through volcanic terrain. And finally, a practical frustration. When planting a garden in a hearthfire homestead, creep cluster has a broken collision box when fully grown. It becomes incredibly difficult to target and harvest with the crosshair. You have to crouch, aim at a very specific angle slightly above the plant. It's a small technical flaw, but one that anyone who's tried to cultivate creep cluster knows intimately. We've walked through the ashlands now. Jasbay grapes reclaimed from imperial control. Dragon's tongue linking fire resistance to ornamental beauty. Scathecraw invading and poisoning. Trummer root brittle against shock. Burnt spriggon wood and spawn ash carrying the violence of their origins. Ash creep clusters with split identities, emperor parasol moss growing high, ash hopper jelly granting light armor, and creep clusters frustrating harvest in gardens. This is the alchemy of volcanic soil and aftermath. Heat shapes what grows here. Eruptions leave their mark, and what survives carries that history in its chemistry. We continue onward. The journey isn't finished. Now we enter places that feel set apart. Sacred. Strange. This is otherworldly botany. Plants tied to realms beyond our own. Deep caverns that exist almost outside of time. Locations touched by mystery. The alchemy here isn't just chemistry. It's connection to something larger, something that doesn't quite belong to the ordinary world. Let's begin with the sleeping tree in Whiterun Hold. It stands alone, massive and unusual. According to lore, it's believed to have grown from a spore that fell from Umbriel, a floating city from a realm of oblivion. Isolde, in conversation, confirms this theory. She notes that the tree is not of this world. Its sap causes hallucinations similar to skooma, but with distinct side effects, like the sensation of time slowing down. An extraterrestrial seed, growing in Skyrim soil, producing visions that alter perception itself. Nirnroot is familiar to anyone who's traveled the land. That distinctive chime, that soft glow near water. But it wasn't always like this. According to an in-game text called the Nirnroot Missive, the plant didn't originally glow or make sound. It adapted these traits to survive the lack of sunlight caused by Red Mountain's eruption during the sun's death event in the First Era. The plant's magical nature allows it to feed on volcanic ash salts in the soil, which is why it thrives near water sources where these salts settle. Nirnroot evolved, changed itself, responded to catastrophe with bioluminescence and song. Deep beneath the surface, in the subterranean realm of Black Reach, there's a variant, Crimson Nirnroot, biologically identical to standard Nirnroot, but growing exclusively in that vast underground cavern. It has formed a symbiotic relationship with the massive glowing fungi there. A master alchemist named Sinderian, originally from Cyrodiil, traveled to Black Reach specifically to study this crimson variant. He died there. You can find his skeleton and field journal, the remnants of his obsession. And if you follow in Sinderian's footsteps, collecting 30 crimson nirnroots, you receive a reward, a passive ability called Sinderian's Serendipity. It gives you a 25% chance to create a duplicate potion whenever you craft one. The ultimate reward for botanical obsession. The pinnacle of alchemical efficiency, achieved through studying the rarest plant in the game. Sinderian's legacy becomes yours. Let's pause here, in these strange places. The sleeping tree from oblivion, growing visions. Nirnroot adapting to volcanic catastrophe with light and sound. Crimson Nirnroot in symbiosis with Blackreach's fungi, studied by Sinderian until his death. and the reward for following his work. Serendipity itself. There's another rare flower, the yellow mountain flower. Unlike its blue, red, and purple cousins that grow throughout the tundra, the yellow variant can only be harvested in one place: the ancestor glade, a sacred location tied to the moth priests, filled with ancestor moths. The flower's exclusivity suggests it requires the unique magical resonance of those moths to bloom. It cannot exist elsewhere. The glade and the flower are bound together. In the Forgotten Vale, you'll find gleam blossom. It's bioluminescent, glowing softly in the darkness. It was likely used by the snow elves, and later the Fomor, as a light source. There's something poignant about this. Fomor heavy armor helmets actually feature harvested gleam blossoms integrated into the chiton. The blind race wears glowing flowers they themselves cannot see. A luminous aesthetic for those who live in permanent darkness. The Forgotten Vale holds another unusual plant, poison bloom. Introduced with the Dawnguard expansion, it's one of the few plants in Skyrim that actively attacks you. Approach it before harvesting, and it releases a cloud of poisonous gas. It's found exclusively in Darkfall Passage, and this defensive mechanism likely evolved to help it survive in the isolated, Fomor-infested environment. The plant protects itself with poison, adapted to a hostile world. The soul cairn offers its own strange growth. Soul husks. They're fungal-like, but they contain the essence of lost souls. Found exclusively in that realm of the dead, they serve a practical purpose. Consuming a soul husk grants 10% resistance to magic and halts the continuous health drain that the soul cairn's environmental crystals inflict on you. The souls trapped there, reduced to fungal form, offer protection to the living who venture into death's domain. Let's gather these mysteries together. Yellow mountain flowers blooming only where ancestor moths gather. Gleam blossoms glowing for the blind Fomor. Poison bloom defending itself with toxic clouds in the Forgotten Vale. Soul husks in the soul cairn, essence of the dead granting resistance to the realm's draining effect. Spriggans present their own puzzle. When you defeat them, they drop taproots. These are implied to be the creature's heart or power source. But there's another ingredient: Spriggon sap. It's distinct from the taproot. You cannot loot Spriggon sap from their bodies. You must purchase it from alchemy merchants or steal it from apothecary shelves. This leads to speculation that the sap requires a specific extraction process that can't be performed in the field. The living creature gives you something different than the prepared ingredient. And there's a hidden connection. Taproots share exactly identical alchemical effects with something called dwarf elder, an ingredient found in the game files but not available in the base game. 4 identical effects. This suggests a cut connection between Spriggans and other flora, a relationship that was planned but never fully realized in the world you can explore. We've walked through sacred and otherworldly places now. The sleeping tree from Oblivion's realm. Nirnroot's evolutionary adaptation to catastrophe. Crimson nirnroot in Blackreach, studied until death by Sinderian, whose work grants you serendipity. Yellow mountain flowers in the ancestor glade. Gleam blossoms glowing for the blind. Poison bloom defending itself. Soul husks offering protection in death's realm. Spriggon sap requiring extraction. Taproots sharing hidden connections with cut content. This is botany that touches mystery. Plants that don't quite belong to the ordinary world, that grow in places touched by magic, death, ancient knowledge, or realms beyond. They carry their origins in their chemistry. And we continue. The journey deepens still. Now we descend into caves and ruins. This is the slow underground walk, where light fades and stone presses close. Here, alchemy is shaped by darkness and dampness. Mushrooms grow in the shadows. The air feels different, heavier, and what you find here carries the weight of the earth itself. Let's start with something familiar, even comforting. Blisterwort, a common mushroom found in caves. Despite its name sounding like an affliction, like something that causes harm, it's actually a remedy. It restores health. Often, it's the first healing ingredient you discover aside from wheat. Merchants sell basic healing potions made from it. Blisterwort is ordinary, reliable, a fungal cure growing quietly in the dark. The bleeding crown is different. This mushroom has a distinct bloody hue. Its primary effect is weakness to fire. Dangerous if you eat it raw, making yourself vulnerable, but powerful when brewed into a poison for enemies who fear flames. Trolls, vampires. Those who already struggle with fire become even more susceptible. The bleeding crown turns their weakness into your weapon. Fly Amanita is visually striking. It looks identical to the real-world Amanita muscaria, a toadstool known for hallucinogenic properties. But in Skyrim, the game abandons that theme entirely. Instead, Fly Amanita provides resist fire and fortify two-handed. Combat buffs, not visions. The familiar red cap with white spots, repurposed for battle rather than altered states. Troll fat shares something with Fly Amanita. Both grant fortify two-handed. It's thematic, isn't it? Trolls are hulking brutes, known for heavy, sweeping attacks. When you harvest their fat and combine it with Fly Amanita, you're chemically borrowing that brute strength. The essence of the troll's power transfers to you, making your own two-handed strikes more devastating. Let's pause here, in the cave's dim light. Blisterwort for healing, bleeding crown for exploiting fire weakness, Fly Amanita for resisting flames and strengthening heavy weapons, troll fat echoing the same brutal power. The cave offers remedies and enhancements, fungus and flesh working together. White-cap mushrooms grow in damp, dark locations, as mushrooms do. But they also appear in military forts, like Fort Greymoor. Their primary effect is fortify heavy armor. The connection feels intentional. Soldiers stationed in damp forts, consuming these mushrooms to toughen their defenses. The fungus links itself to the warriors who likely depend on it. Namra's rot carries a darker name. It's named after Namra, the Daedric prince of decay and revulsion. Fitting, then, that it grows in dark, damp caves, often near Fommer hives. It possesses the fear effect. Poison an enemy with Namra's rot, and they flee from combat, overcome by terror. Decay and revulsion, manifesting as psychological weapon. Mora tapenella has specific growing habits. It appears strictly on dead tree stumps and fallen logs. Never on the ground, never on living trees. Only where wood has died. Assassins prize it because it creates lingering damage health poisons. Strike once, and the poison continues draining life long after. The fungus that feeds on dead wood teaches you how to make death linger. The glowing mushroom is easy to overlook, but essential for those who pursue perfection in their craft. It possesses the fortify smithing effect. Commonly found in Dwemer ruins and Fommer caves, these mushrooms serve as natural lighting, glowing softly in the underground darkness, and they help you forge better weapons and armor. Light and craftsmanship, offered by the same pale fungus. Let's gather what we've found. White caps in military forts, fortifying heavy armor. Namra's rot inducing fear, growing where decay thrives. Mora tapenella on dead wood, creating lingering poisons. Glowing mushrooms illuminating ruins while enhancing smithing. The underground provides specialized tools, each with purpose. Hanging moss isn't a mushroom, but it belongs to this underground world. It's found almost exclusively in ancient Nordic barrows and reachman camps, thriving on the decay of old stone ruins. For warriors, it's arguably the best ingredient available. It provides fortify one-handed and fortify health. Two essential benefits in one soft, green growth clinging to ancient walls. And then there's ectoplasm, harvested from ghosts and spirits after you destroy them. Its effects mirror the nature of the undead perfectly. It restores magicka and fortifies destruction. The substance seems to be literally solidified magical energy, left behind when a spirit is unmade. You're collecting the essence of magic itself, condensed from the remnants of the otherworldly. We've walked through the fungal underworld now. Blisterwort's healing, bleeding crowns fire vulnerability, fly amanita and troll fat granting brute strength. White caps in forts, Namra's rot spreading fear, Mora tapanella teaching lingering death. Glowing mushrooms lighting the way while enhancing your smithing, hanging moss fortifying warriors in ancient ruins, ectoplasm capturing the essence of destroyed spirits. This is the alchemy of darkness and stone. The gifts you find when you descend, when you're willing to walk slowly through caves and ruins, gathering what grows in shadow and feeds on decay. The underground has its own language, its own offerings. And we'll continue. There's always more depth to explore. Now we shift our focus from pure alchemy to something broader. Here, ingredients connect to the wider craft of Skyrim. Defense, gear, the workbench and the forge. Alchemy doesn't exist in isolation. It touches armor, smithing, enchanting. The potion table and the anvil speak to each other in quiet ways. Let's start with snowberries. Simple, white berries growing in the freezing tundra. But they're remarkable. They're the only plant in the base game that naturally possesses resistance to all three primary elements: fire, frost, and shock. This makes them the most versatile base ingredient for crafting defensive potions against mages and dragons. Their ability to survive the harsh, freezing environment seems to translate into protection against every elemental force. Snow becomes universal shield. Glow dust is harvested from wisps and wisp mothers. Rare, dangerous enemies that float and shimmer. The dust shares the damage magicka regen effect with other insect-based glowing ingredients like torchbug thorax. There's a pattern here, a consistent theme. Bioluminescence equals magical interference. The things that glow naturally seem to disrupt the flow of magic in others. Scaly foliota is a fungus you'll find growing on birch trees in the Rift and Fall forest. It's one of very few ingredients in the entire game that grants fortify carry weight. Along with creep cluster and river betty, it's essential for those who hoard, who carry too much, who refuse to leave anything behind. A mushroom on a birch tree, helping you bear more weight. Hawk's eggs, introduced with hearthfire, are notoriously difficult to gather. They spawn in nests on the roofs of player-built homes or high peaks. Unlike standard chicken eggs, hawk's eggs provide resist magic and resist magicka regen. Chemically distinct. Far more valuable. But you have to climb for them, risk the height. Let's pause and consider. Snowberries resisting all elements. Glow dust interfering with magic through bioluminescence. Scaly foliota letting you carry more. Hawk's eggs high up, granting magical resistance. Each ingredient connects to defense, to protection, to expanding your capabilities. When you harvest a beehive, you obtain a beehive husk. This represents the waxy structure of the hive itself. It's one of the few ingredients that grants fortify light armor. The suggestion is that the waxy material is used to treat and harden leather armor. The architecture of the hive, applied to the craft of protection. Bees building what helps you defend yourself. Powdered mammoth tusk presents an odd situation. You can harvest whole mammoth tusks from slain mammoths, but you cannot grind them down into the powdered version yourself. That specific alchemical powder can only be found in static bowls within giant camps or strongholds. Ironically, the dust is harder to source than the tusk itself. The giants possess the process, not you. Void salts are the crystalline remains of a banished storm Atronach. Most salts are used purely for potions, but void salts are unique. They're required to upgrade the nightingale armor at a workbench. The armor is reinforced with the essence of oblivion itself. Alchemy and smithing merge. The remains of a summoned creature become part of legendary gear. Balamund, the Rift 10 blacksmith, makes a specific request. He wants fire salts. He claims that only the intense heat of these elemental salts can keep his forge hot enough to craft high-quality steel. Here, alchemy fuels smithing directly. The ingredient isn't just for potions. It becomes the fire that shapes metal. Let's gather what we've learned. Beehive husks fortifying light armor. Powdered mammoth tusk available only in giant camps. Void salts upgrading nightingale armor with essence of oblivion. Fire salts heating Balamund's forge. Ingredients moving between potion table and workbench, between alchemy and craft. Frost salts have their own special use beyond resist frost potions. They're required for the Atronach forge in the midden, beneath the College of Winterhold. Place frost salts, a ruined book, and other items in the forge, and you can summon a hostile frost Atronach or craft a staff of the frost Atronach. The ingredient becomes summoning material, a key to conjuring elemental creatures. And then there are Daedra hearts, the rarest, most expensive ingredient for alchemy. But they're far more coveted for Daedric smithing. Creating Daedric armor and weapons requires these hearts. To farm them, players can revisit the shrine of Maroon's Dagon periodically. 2 Dremora reliably respawn there every few in-game days, and when you defeat them, their hearts are yours. The shrine becomes a harvest point for the essence of Daedra themselves. We've walked through craft and protection now. Snowberries resisting all elements. Glow dust disrupting magic through light. Scaly foliota increasing carry weight. Hawk's eggs high on peaks, granting magical resistance. Beehive husks hardening leather. Powdered mammoth tusk kept by giants. Void salts upgrading nightingale armor. Fire salts fueling forges. Frost salts powering the Atronach forge. Daedra hearts required for the finest, darkest smithing. Alchemy doesn't stand alone. It connects to everything. Defense, armor, smithing, summoning. The ingredients you gather don't just make potions. They shape gear, fuel fires, call forth elementals, create legendary equipment. The craft of Skyrim is interconnected, woven together through these substances. And we continue. The web grows wider still. Now we approach the end. Dangerous mastery. Poisons, timing, folklore. The ingredients that teach you about death, about precision, about the thin line between healing and harm. This is where alchemy becomes sharp, where the craft reveals its capacity for both cure and killing. Let's begin with folklore. Death Bell. The flower carries its purpose in its name. Local Nordic folklore claims it only grows in locations where an unfortunate death has occurred. This explains its abundance in swamps and near graveyards, like the one in Forcreath. A flower that marks tragedy. But despite its grim reputation and use in poisons, deathbell is a common ornamental flower in solitude. The city's inhabitants don't share the superstitious fear common in rural holds. Beauty and death, coexisting in cultivated gardens. Canis root is primarily used by Nords for paralysis poisons. But Master Nelith, the Telvanni wizard, reveals something interesting. It's also a culinary ingredient. You can make Canis root tea. This implies that with proper preparation, the root's stiffening, paralytic properties can be neutralized or diluted into a mild beverage. Likely bitter, but drinkable. The Dunmare of Morrowind enjoy it. Poison becomes tea, depending on how you prepare it. The imp stool mushroom presents a paradox. Assassins favor it because it possesses both damage health and paralysis effects. Perfect for killing. But it also has restore health and lingering damage health. An amateur alchemist could accidentally create a potion that heals the victim while simultaneously paralyzing and poisoning them. The mushroom contains contradiction. Help and harm, woven together in the same ingredient. The swamp fungal pod grows abundantly in the marshes of Jolmarch, near Morthal. It's one of the most accessible sources for paralysis potions early in the game. You don't need to fight dangerous enemies like netches or hunt for rare Canis root. Just walk through the swamps and gather. Paralysis becomes easy, available to anyone willing to wade through marsh water. Let's pause here. Deathbell marking death, but decorating solitude. Canis root, poison or tea depending on preparation. Imp stool containing paradox. Swamp fungal pod making paralysis accessible. The line between harm and help grows blurry. There's a specific synergy worth noting. Shorus hunter antennae, added with Dawnguard, and ancestor mothwings are two of the very few ingredient pairs that share exactly identical alchemical effects. Mix them together, and you're guaranteed a potion with 4 distinct properties. Damage stamina, fortify conjuration, damage magicka regen, and fortify enchanting. Perfect alignment. 2 ingredients moving in lockstep. Butterflies offer different purposes depending on color. The orange monarch-style butterflies yield wings that restore health. Defensive. Restorative. But blue butterfly wings damage magicka regen. Offensive. Used to cripple enemy mages. The color tells you the function. Orange heals, blue harms. 2 similar creatures, opposite effects. Her graven feathers are used to create weakness to shock poisons. They're notably lightweight, only 0.1 in weight. But their large visual model in the inventory tricks players. Many mistake them for heavier items like eagle feathers or quills. Appearance deceives. What looks substantial weighs almost nothing. Torch bugs are bound by time. Their thorax can only be harvested from torch bugs that spawn exclusively between 8 p.m. and 5 a.m. If you wait until daylight, the insects physically depawn from the game world. One of the few ingredients strictly gated by the in-game clock. Night creatures, disappearing with dawn. Bees are different from other harvestable creatures. Unlike flowers or mushrooms which are static objects until harvested, bees are fully simulated physics entities. You can collide with them, knock them out of the air with your body, or even shout at them. They fall to the ground, and then you can collect them as the bee ingredient. The physics of the world affect them. They're not just objects waiting to be picked. They're alive, reactive, until they're not. Let's gather what remains. Shorus hunter antennae and ancestor mothwings in perfect synergy. Blue butterflies harming mages, orange butterflies healing. Her graven feathers light despite their appearance. Torch bugs only appearing at night. Bees as physics objects, knocked from the air by force. And now we come to the end, the deadliest ingredient, the one that closes this journey with a sharp line. Nirnroot. It is the single rarest plant in the game. Only one sample exists, obtainable during the Dark Brotherhood quest, to kill an empire. Just one, and it is biologically distinct for its extreme toxicity. Most damage health poisons deal moderate damage. Painful, dangerous, but measured. A potion crafted with nirnroot can deal thousands of points of damage instantly. Not hundreds. Thousands. It is the deadliest botanical weapon in all of Tamriel. One root. One chance. Absolute lethality. We've walked through dangerous mastery now. Deathbell's folklore and ornamental contradiction. Canis root as poison or tea. Imp stool's paradox of healing while harming. Swamp fungal pods accessible paralysis. The perfect synergy of Shorus hunter antennae and ancestor moth wings. Blue butterflies crippling mages. Orange butterflies restoring health. Her graven feathers deceiving with their lightness. Torch bugs bound to night. Bees falling from the air when struck. And finally, nirnroot. The rarest, the deadliest, the single plant that surpasses all others in its capacity to end life instantly. This is where alchemy meets its sharpest edge, where knowledge of plants becomes knowledge of death, where precision and timing and preparation determine whether you heal or kill, whether you stumble into paradox or wield perfect lethality. The journey through Skyrim's alchemy is complete. From wheat and mountain flowers on roadside farms to nirnroot in the hands of an assassin. From simple harvests to dangerous mastery. The land has taught you its secrets, one ingredient at a time. And now, rest. The knowledge is yours. The story is told.